Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to go over the management interface on the FortiGate and how to configure it, what the best way to do it is, because I ran into so many problems with this management interface because it's not like any other management interface that you've seen on other firewalls where it's a dedicated interface and that's how you're going to manage the box. All information is going to come in and out of that. That is not how this works on a FortiGate. It works just like any other interface, and there's some caveats to that, and we're going to dive into them. Particularly if you have a out-of-band management um, network, you're going to find that this is going to be challenging for you simply because the FortiGate treats this management interface like any other interface. It is not a true, like in its own VRF. And in fact, when you put it into HA, the management interface actually gets shared to the secondary one. So you can no longer access the secondary box uh, through the management port if it's in an HA. Now, there are some ways to actually fix that and access it, and I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you how this works, show you a little bit of things, and then I'm going to show you my way to kind of fix this. This is not Fortinet's way. It's totally different, but I'm going to show you and tell you why I do it this way. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at the drawing here. I've got an inside interface, an outside interface, and a management. And in this particular case, I want my management to ride its own out-of-band network. Maybe I have a VPN, maybe I have something here for cable network, etc. That this is how I'm going to access it through maybe a jump box, whatever. If you have a dedicated out-of-band management network, you're going to want to pay attention to this video because the way that things route are different, right? And I've struggled with this and I've tried multiple different things. I've tried putting this management interface into a VRF. Um, I've tried using the HA interface and it's given me nothing but problems. So here's my solution here. And the way that traffic flows is just like any other interface. So if you create a static route, a default route, pointing your uh, pointing it toward the management interface, what you're gonna get, which I've done here in this uh, lab FortiGate, is I've configured a default route and pointed it towards my management interface. And let's say I wanted all of my management traffic to go out that. Um, that's what it's going to look like, and it's going to go out that management interface. Zoom in on that too, so people at home can see this. I have my management interface, all zeros, default gateway going to the management interface. All right. So if I do that, that's going to cause a problem. What's going to happen is traffic is going to run into this inside interface. Instead of going out the outside, it is going to go down the management in that way. And I don't want that. I just want management traffic to come in and out. And what that looks like here, as I've configured it here, you'll take a look at the logs, is traffic's coming in port 4, which is my inside interface. I'm setting it to 8.8.4.4, but it's going down the management interface. And because I don't have a rule allowing that traffic, it's getting dropped and denied, right? So that is how the traffic's going to flow. Well, how do you kind of fix this? How do you get this management interface to be on its own and not do that, especially if you have an out-of-band management network? Well, what I like to do is enable VDOMs. Now, Fortinet's official policy or official documentation says to enable VDOMs. Um, and there's a management VDOM, but there's some issues with that management VDOM. And to get that VDOM here, I'm running 7.2 code. I know in some of the other versions you actually have to enable it in the GUI. But in some of the later code, you can just go into the system settings, and I was trying to find it here earlier. It was system settings and VDOMs. So I'm going to enable VDOMs, turn that on. It's going to kick me out. I'll log back in, and you'll see now that I have a global VDOM and a root VDOM. Now, again, Fortinet's official says, hey, make an admin VLAN and call it management or something like that, right? And then have your traffic go out that management VDOM. I personally don't like that. I've used it, and I'll tell you why, and that's because pretty much a lot of the other traffic goes out of this default root VDOM. So when I enabled the management, only VDOM, I still had a lot of traffic trying to go out this root VDOM. Well, that gave me a lot of problems. I've tried putting in a VRF. If you try putting the management interface in a VRF, the challenges I had is everything was configured not to use that VRF, and it'll try to use a different interface. So then you have to go in and specifically tell it to use this one interface versus anything else, right? So you're going into, the FortiGate for the FortiGuard stuff, telling it to specifically use that interface because now it's in a different VRF, etc. So it was just a big pain to try to change everything, TACAX, radius, etc. Use this particular interface. If you create the VDOM for root, use root as your management, and then create a new VDOM for, let's just call it data traffic. And we're going to, whether you want to use central NAT or not, policy or profile based, that all gets set here. I'm going to use the standard defaults, which is just traffic and profile based. And then you may or may not want to use central NAT, right? Depending on your environment. And then once that is created, then you'll go into your interfaces and actually assign those interfaces um, to the VDOM that you created for data, right? So port 4, and then I want to use my WAN interface and any other interfaces that you have. Now this one here is not allowing me to move it because it has an interface kind of associated with that right there. So look at your WAN interface here, that WAN 1, it has an association with it. What is that association? I can go look for it. I have a firewall policy that says WAN 1. That's a default policy in there. Now what I can do is click on that and delete it. That deletes the policy, deletes the dependency upon it, and then now I should be able to actually move that over to data, right? So now if I look at my root in my folder here, let's see, policies. I don't really need a firewall policy, but what I do need to do is make sure that my management interface is in there and that I have a static route down there. So now that allows, the only thing I want in root is my management interface, and then all traffic for radius authentication to the box. Now it'll be a little bit different on radius too because sometimes it uses per VDOM, but any management traffic, anything to FortiGate, any of the management interface will all come out of that root and it'll hit that management interface. Some things are different. Some things are per VDOM. I know radius is one of them, but there's some global settings in here, particularly some of the additional FortiGuard stuff, the analyzer, things like that will all come out of the management interface and out of that root VDOM. Now, if I want to configure the data VDOM, I'm going to go here, create a policy, and I should be able to allow that traffic to go through that I was trying to ping earlier, which was to 8.8.4.4. I'm going to create a default route out the WAN interface. And I also need a policy that allows traffic to go. We'll call it inside to outside or WAN, whichever you want. It'll be port 4 to WAN. And our source, we're just going to say all, destination all. You can get more granular, but this is just a test here. We're going to leave that NAT on since we didn't choose central NAT. And we're going to log all sessions so we can see the traffic. And say OK. And let's see if this works. So we're going to ping with the source of that. And it failed. Now I just went through to try to look at what the issue is, and I actually have another firewall that is configured that was blocking the traffic, but we'll take a look at those logs and you'll see that the actual traffic came in port 4 but out port 1 and it was accepted. So the traffic would have normally succeeded. I just have another firewall that's in front of this that's blocking the traffic. But you'll see here that source to destination is in. And then if you wanted to hit the management interface of this directly, you can, as I'm doing now. Um, 40.40. So there you go. You have the out of band management um, configured in a VDOM under root. You have its default route. And now if you won't actually see that traffic coming out of this VDOM here. You see the traffic coming out of the data VDOM. So the traffic, and then that is now permitted. So we now have the rule. All right, let me know what you think of that situation or that design. Let me know how you've kind of like encountered the management interface of Fortinet. I'm going to dive into another video here to talk about HA and management with HA as well. But I'd love to hear your experiences with the management in the comments. And if you found a better way to do the management interface, why or why not you would think that would be a good idea or not. And if you've tried it, please let me know. Thank you.